Our subject this morning is listening, and I want to begin by telling you a story. A husband and wife are sitting at the breakfast table, and the wife says, "You never listen to me." The husband responds, "Of course I do. I always listen to you." The wife says, "Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. Listen very carefully, because at the end, I'm going to ask you a question about it." "Okay," says the husband, and the wife begins the story. Here it is. You're the engineer on a train which leaves the station at exactly 12 noon with 62 passengers on board. After 12 minutes, it stops at another station. The stop is 5 minutes long. 12 passengers get off and 18 new passengers get on. The train goes for another 38 minutes. Then it stops at a small station where the stop is only for 2 minutes. 6 people get off and 7 new passengers get on. After another 21 minutes of travel, the train stops at a station for 5 minutes. 18 passengers get off and 12 new passengers get on. The train goes only a short distance, 5 minutes, to the next station where 20 passengers get off and 13 new passengers get on. Now the wife says, "Here's the question. What's the name of the engineer?" "What?" shouts the husband. "What kind of a crazy question is that? I've been adding up all those minutes and counting all the passengers. How am I supposed to know the name of the engineer?" "You didn't listen to me," responds the wife. "The very first thing I said to you was, 'You are the engineer.'" Okay, tell the truth now. How many could answer the wife's question, and how many thought it was a crazy question? I tell this story to illustrate that listening is hard work. It's easy to miss the point. Speakers may try to mislead us, and our own biases influence what we think the answer might be. You all know that we are at a point in our nation's history where listening is more important than ever. The mob which stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6 was energized by lies they had been told over the past 4 years, and especially in the 2 months since the presidential election. Surveys tell us that a significant majority of those identifying as Republicans still believe those lies. Many are motivated to act on those beliefs. We have a big job ahead of us as a nation. We all hope the new administration, which will take over on Wednesday, will be up to it. But we must remember that each one of us has a part to play in how this all turns out. Listening has been the subject of a great deal of conversation and literature over the years. Maybe you remember Deborah Tannen's book, "You Just Don't Understand Me," which was published in 2001, exactly 20 years ago. Now, it was primarily about communications between men and women, but the issues are the same for almost any kind of listening. You don't have to read the whole book to get the message. The book's chapter titles alone illustrate the issues around listening. So let me just read the 10 chapter titles of that book, You Just Don't Understand Me. 1. Different words, different worlds. 2. Women and men talking at cross purposes. 3. Put down that paper and talk to me. 4. Gossip. 5. I'll explain it to you. Lecturing and listening. 6. Community and context. Styles in conflict. 7. Who's interrupting? Issues of dominance and control. 8. Damned if you do. 9. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Cross talk across the ages. And 10. Living with asymmetry. Opening lines of communications. A very interesting book. In addition to literature, there's lots of work going on to help people listen and to enhance communications among those who may disagree with or at least not fully understand one another. Several organizations are carrying on this work. Coming to the Table is a national organization with many local chapters. According to its website, Coming to the Table promotes truth, justice, and healing working together to create a just and truthful society that acknowledges and seeks to heal from the racial wounds of the past, from slavery and the many forms of racism it spawned. I'm sure you know that our own Ira Chaleff is the co-leader of the local chapter of Coming to the Table, and many of us have attended the monthly discussions that he co-leads at a storefront in Front Royal. Of course, the sessions are on Zoom now, but they are continuing every month. So thank you to Ira for doing this work, and thank you to Ellie Clark, who helps out with the logistics of the sessions. So, Coming to the Table is a national organization seeking to address the racial divide that exists among us. Another organization seeks to address the political divide that exists among us. Better Angels was formed in 2016 following the presidential election. It offers workshops, debates, and other events where red or conservative and blue or liberal participants attempt to better understand one another's positions and discover shared values. Its mission is depolarizing U.S. politics. Last year, Better Angels was forced to change its name to Braver Angels as a result of a trademark infringement lawsuit. The name Better Angels had been chosen from the closing words of Abraham Lincoln's inaugural address on March 4, 1861, just before the Civil War. Here is what President Lincoln said: "I am loath to close. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic chords of memory, stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land, will yet swell the chorus of union when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature." We can only hope President Biden will be as eloquent as that in his inaugural address this coming Wednesday. So we have organizations working hard to address and heal the racial divide and the political divide in our country. What is our role, and how should we be listening in the days which lie ahead? Listening to one another, it seems to me, will be the key. This can be hard work in the divided situation in which we find ourselves. Imagine for a moment that you have a neighbor who flies a Confederate flag in his yard or has a Trump banner on his pickup truck. In Rappahannock County, that doesn't take much imagination. Maybe you have such a neighbor. How do you deal with him? Do you talk with him at all? If so, what do you talk about? You probably know the advice of many counselors is, in talking with someone with whom you have a major dispute, start out with something you have in common. Ask him about his dog. Talk about what you're going to plant in your garden this spring. Conversations like this can at least open the channel of communication between you. But these conversations don't get to the heart of the divisions among us, which are not just divisions between you and your neighbor, but between huge portions of our country's population. How are we going to address those issues? My advice is this: listen far more than you talk. Rather than trying to convert your neighbor to your way of thinking, really work to try to understand his way of thinking. Who knows? He may be able to help you understand why he thinks and feels the way he does, even though you may still disagree with him. Perhaps a bond of empathy can be created, even when an agreement on issues cannot. Of course, there's also an opportunity for you to tell him how you feel and think, and why. He most likely won't be converted to your way of thinking, but he may empathize just a little bit, and that's progress. We all have a lot of work to do in the days which lie ahead. May that work help us to address and resolve the differences among us, and remember that that work begins with listening to one another.